President's Day savings are happening now at the Home Depot with up to 40% off select appliances. Looking to upgrade your fridge? Check out LG's newest model, serving up ice in all kinds of styles. Cube, crushed, craft ice, and now new mini craft ice straight from the dispenser. From cold brew to fizzy favorites, these refrigerators will have you entertaining like a pro. Shop President's Day savings and get up to 40% off, plus free delivery on select appliances like LG at the Home Depot. Free delivery on appliance purchases of $1,498 or more. Offer valid February 5th through the 25th, U.S. only. See store online for details.
5 a.m., I'm up with a crisp Celsius energy drink. Running 12 miles today. Grab a green juice, quick change, and head to work. Meetings, workshops. One more Celsius, no slowing down. Working late, but obviously still meeting the girls for a little dancing. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
TaxAct is here anytime you want to easily file your taxes. TaxAct is here for the early birds who like to knock them out as soon as the season opens. And for the procrastinators who like to wait until the very last minute. TaxAct is also here for the middlers who file right in the middle of tax season. No one ever talks about the middlers, but TaxAct sees you, and TaxAct respects you. TaxAct, let's get them over with.
We heard you. 9 years of Bring Back the Snack Wrap, and you've won. But maybe you should have asked for more. Say hello to the Hot Honey Snack Wrap. Now you've really won. Go to McDonald's and get it while you can.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 143 of DBR Bites. We are here to preview the big game this weekend against the Clemson Tigers, the Duke Blue Devils, and the Clemson Tigers battling in Cameron for first place in the ACC. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about some things that have happened around the ACC in the last 24 hours that are of note. I am Donald Wine. I am your host for this episode. I have Jason Evans with me. Jason, you are headed down to Durham this weekend for the two games. I'm first of all jealous. I was trying to make this work. It's Valentine's Day on Saturday. It's not that I have anyone that I need to be hanging out with on Valentine's Day other than Duke basketball, but everything else is just kind of tied me up. So I'm at 0% for that. I am at, Jason, 5% for Monday. So there's still a chance, as they say, but it's probably going to be you and the dog. Hopefully you get to hang out with him.
Yeah, Kenny the dog Denard tells me he's going to be in town for the weekend. Yeah, it just happenstance that the two of us are going to be able to work it out to hang out a little bit. I'll probably be, hanging out at the Washington Duke a lot. That's where I always sort of make my home base to some extent. A wonderful, wonderful listener to this podcast who has provided me with tickets in the past has provided me with tickets again. So I won't be sitting on press row. That said, I will be going back into the locker room after the game to talk to players, to sit in on John Shire's press conference. So I'll try and bring all of you a little bit of sound and flavor from that. And I'll try, I'm going to see, it's possible I'll figure out, some place to meet up maybe on Sunday or maybe on probably more likely Monday, perhaps before the game. And I'll let folks know and we'll see what we can do. Frankly, my flight doesn't give me my flight on Saturday does not give me a lot of time to meet up with anybody before the game on Saturday. So but just really excited. It's always fun to be back in Durham. I had planned to do this a few weeks ago and there was forecasts of a terrible, horrible snowstorm.
I think hit. Yeah. So you wouldn't have made it.
It didn't really happen to Atlanta that much. Like I thought it was gonna be bad down here too, but it hit the triangle hard enough that I'm glad I wasn't there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, the game that eventually got moved to noon, which is what this game will be on Saturday against the Clemson Tigers, a noon PM tip-off on ESPN. Jason, let's get into the Clemson Tigers, who are currently ranked 20th in the AP, 18th in the coaches poll. We'll talk about why that might change in just a second. They're 20-5 on the year, 10-2 in the ACC, and their top 100 wins. Some really quality teams in there: West Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, Cincinnati, Syracuse, SMU, Notre Dame, Miami, and Jason. They just recently became just the third ACC team to go 2-0 on the West Coast trip, beating Stanford and Cal on the road. So they had a nice little high there. Their losses, again, some pretty decent teams: Georgetown by 5, Alabama by 6, BYU by 3, and in conference, NC State by 4 in overtime. The one caveat, Jason, of celebrating the high of going all the way to the West Coast and coming back 2-0, they lost midweek at home by 10 to Virginia Tech. So it's very weird how that sometimes happens. We got the week break after, if you recall, after we went out west. They get a few days and it probably looked all the better rust for it. But 6-2 on road games for them, 4-3 against quad 1 teams. I mentioned the fact that they are in the top 20 in the human polls, the AP and the coaches. But as you're about to talk about some of the reasons why, the computers have them ranked a little bit lower: 32 in KenPom, 36 in Evan Mia, 25 in Torvik, and then the net has them ranked 33rd, which means this is just barely a quad 2 game, but a very, very strong opponent. And as I mentioned, still for the top of the ACC, this battle, even though Clemson picked up the midweek loss.
Yeah, you mentioned they're 6-2 on the road. That is a super impressive road record. Donald, in the ACC, they have won 14 consecutive ACC road games. Wow. That is really, really, it is never easy to win on the road in the ACC, and somehow Clemson has managed to win 14 straight. And I'm going to go ahead and tip my cap off the top to Brad Brownell. He's just one of the best coaches in the country. I think there may have been questions.
I would say
about
he's easily among the top 3 to 5 underrated, because no one ever taught. And Jason, you and I are we talk about Clemson a lot more than we probably than most people do. But even still, we fail to kind of generate what it is that Clemson has been doing year in and year out under Brownell. It started out very slow for him, but in the past few years, Clemson has become one of the top dogs in the ACC, and it's because of him, just being able to lead this team.
So the amazing thing about Clemson this year is they lost pretty much everything from last. Like, they were really great last. We know that. We saw firsthand. I was sitting there right behind the Duke bench when Cooper Flagg slipped and Duke lost that game to Clemson. That was a really, really great Clemson team a year ago. They lost. The only guy who saw minutes on last year's team who came back is Dylan Hunter. The rest of the team is guys they brought in from the transfer portal, mostly and again, not like transfer portal studs, guys who, mostly guys who were older, guys who were like seniors, who'd played on smaller college teams and such, not even like Power 5 transfers. Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned the guys that they lost, how they lost just about everybody. You failed to mention that one of the guys they lost was Ian Shefflin, and they lost him to football. He went over to the other side and played tight end for Clemson. So, right,
exactly. And believe me, if they could have Ian Shefflin back, I'm sure they would love it.
I'm sure they would. Yeah.
So they brought in some transfers, and we'll get into naming some of them. They brought in a freshman class that, it's fine. It was 44th in the country. The freshman class was. There's no one in it who's like a top 50 recruit. There are a couple guys so he takes a bunch of cast off transfer portal guys. He takes a bunch of, okay, but not like expected to be really great freshmen. He combines them with Dylan Hunter, who, played teens kind of minutes last year. Not a big scorer. A guy gets like 5 points a game or so. And suddenly he's got that team back in the top 25. Suddenly he's got that team as one of the top teams in the ACC. Brad Brownell is an absolute wizard. I read a really interesting thing that when he recruits guys, both through the portal and as high schoolers, he gives them like this, like a personality test or something like that. He wants to understand sort of who they are, how they would fit, what it is about them that would work with the current guys he has. I've never heard of this kind of thing, but Brad Brownell has used this to mold a ragtag group into a team that's clearly going to make the NCAAs and is a real threat. It's super, super impressive. And he's done it by stressing defense. Defense, defense, defense. He has turned these guys, every single one of them will work their butt off to guard you and make your life miserable. This Clemson team is the number 16, according to Ken Pomeroy, the 16th best defensive team in the country. In the game, they just lost to Virginia Tech. And, well, you know, that was very, very significant that they picked up that loss. It was the first time all year that they had given up more than 70 points in regulation in an ACC game. Now, the defense that they play, it's not that they're great at forcing turnovers. It's not that they block a lot of shots. These are just guys who, they get down in their stance. They get in your face. They stay in front of you. They say, you're not going to get in the lane on me. And they force you to take bad shots. And what they do is they let the shot clock. The shot clock goes tick, tick, tick. And you're like, I haven't gotten a good shot yet. Tick, tick, tick. Hey, it's getting kind of low here. I kind of need to look for a shot. Tick, tick, tick. Oh my God, I need to fire something up here. And Clemson forces you to take a bad shot. Teams hit just 30.4% from 3 against them. Teams hit just 47.4 from 2. As a result, Clemson has one of the top 25 effective field goal percentage defenses in the land. And here's the other thing, Donald. When you miss a shot against Clemson, good luck getting an offensive rebound. They gang rebound. This Clemson team, which has 0 stars. We'll talk about it later on. I have no idea who to focus on this team. They have 0 stars. There's no one. Clemson could conceivably win the ACC without a single all-ACC player. That's bonkers. It's that is crazy, but that's what this team is. And every single guy on this team goes and rebounds. They have a top 10 defensive rebounding rate. Duke grabs offensive rebounds at better than a 37% rate. When we miss the ball, more than a third of the time we get the offensive rebound. Clemson's like, no. Clemson only allows offensive rebounds at about a 25% rate. They force you into bad shots and they rebound. That is what they do. And they have been so damn effective at it. As a result, in ACC play, they have the number 1 defense in the conference. They're even better than Duke on defense, which is just so impressive. All right. I've told you the good stuff. Let's get to the kind of that's the offense. Pomeroy rates them just the 70th best offense in the country. Look, they're very smart. They're very disciplined. They know a good shot from a bad shot, but honestly, they're just not all that talented on offense for the most part, this Clemson team. They don't make a lot of turnovers. They shoot okay, about 34, a little less than 35% of their threes. They hit about 55% of their twos. I've talked about them being a really great defensive rebounding team. They're not a very good offensive rebounding team. It's clear that they focus on the defensive glass, not the offensive glass. And I think that part of that is they're getting back on defense. They will not let you fast break against them. If you grab one of their missed shots and you're like, oh, let's run, Clemson's like, we're already back there. So they're just average basically at getting to the free throw line. They're good at taking the right shot. They're 35th in the land at this stat of 2-point field goal defense. Basically, everything you could say about Clemson is, hey, they play the right way. They may not be uber athletes. They may not be the most talented guys in the land, but they play the right kind of basketball, and they have a coach who highlights that better than anybody.
I think the one thing that's interesting about Clemson is when you have a team like that, again, a 0 stars type of team, a lot of times they want to move the ball around because it's not like they're focusing on any one guy, right? So they're just moving the ball around until one of the 5 guys on the floor has a good enough shot that they can take. The one place that they have struggled mightily is moving the ball. Against Virginia Tech in that loss on Wednesday night, they only managed 6 assists. In their loss against NC State, reminder that went to overtime, they only had 9 assists. And they're the worst team in the ACC at ball movement, assist percent. So that part is, that's kind of the thing that kind of mind bends, because again, on a team where you have a bunch of guys who could do everything, right? Everything's, about the same, and everyone's kind of getting the ball about the same. it's about ball movement. So they're not looking for some guy in the post every play. They're not looking for one guy in the 3-point line every play. They're just moving most teams just move the ball around if they're in that kind of state, but not Clemson. They're somehow, because of the slowness of their tempo, they sometimes drag it all the way down to where somebody has to kind of drive and create something to take a shot. And I think that's kind of why their offense has been stagnating at times, despite the fact that their defense has been very good.
I got nothing else until we get to the players. I'm ready for us to.
Well, I'm ready too, but you know who's not ready? This commercial break that's coming up. So let's have that first, and then we'll talk about the players and the things to watch about this game against Clemson. So stick around.
Support for this show and the Fans First Sports Network comes from Strong Coffee Company. Elevate your coffee routine with Strong Coffee Company's Black Instant Blend and Lattes. Both feature organic coffee, protein, MCTs, and adaptogens for sustained energy and mental clarity. With quick delivery and exceptional taste, their coffee is a convenient option and a nutritious addition to your daily routine. Experience a healthier, most productive day with Strong Coffee Company. Visit strongcoffeecompany.com and receive 20% off at checkout using promo code FFSN. Again, strongcoffeecompany.com, FFSN.
We are back, and we continue our preview of the Clemson Tigers, of getting that game on Saturday at noon. We shift our attention, Jason, to the players. You've talked about some of the players and, again, how this is kind of a no-stars type of team. But tell me about who we should be looking out for if there is anybody to kind of focus on. Because, again, all these guys do everything, pretty decently on both offense and defense. But there's no one guy that sticks out above the rest.
No, and I'm about to give you a demonstration of how much there is no dominant player on this Clemson team. So first of all, they have 9 guys who average between 17 and 28 minutes per game. No one more than 28. So there's nobody who plays 30 minutes a game. I mean, that's kind of crazy. The guy who was like their leading scorer against Virginia Tech the other day only scored 2 points against Georgia Tech a few games before that. That's you talked about that Stanford road game that they had recently. That they won 66-64. In the Stanford road game, their 5 starters combined for 23 points, and their bench scores combined for 43 points. Like, what? It's just, this team, you can never tell with this team. And one great way to demonstrate that, Donald, we've talked in the past about the Ken Pomeroy MVP. When you win a game, and Clemson's won a ton of games this year, Ken Pomeroy, his computers look at all the stats from the game, look at who played efficiently and who figured in, who filled up the stat book, and it goes, this guy's the MVP of the game. And for the Duke Blue Devils, we've only had 3 different guys win the Ken Pom MVP in any game this year. Cameron Boozer, who wins it virtually every game. Then the only other guys are Isaiah Evans did it once, and Patrick Gungba, I think, has done it twice. That's it. Duke has had 3 guys as Ken Pom MVP. Clemson has had 7 different guys win the Ken Pomeroy MVP. That is insane. Not just every single starter. 7 different guys have been the guy who led them to victory at some point this season. This team is just, it's a team full of different dudes who all do different things well. I'm going to start with their front line because we haven't mentioned his name yet, but Patrick Gungba, the issue of whether or not Patrick Gungba plays in this game will be a big deal for Duke. It's very possible by the time that folks listen to this podcast that we will have heard definitively, because Duke will put out a availability report. If I had to guess, Donald, I'm going to guess that Pat will not play. That's not any inside information.
That's my guess as well.
Yeah, not any inside information. It's just sort of the tone that John Shire had. Duke, likes to make sure, far more important for Pat to miss an extra game or 2 and be healthy in March than it is to get him back early, even for an important game like the Clemson game. So if Duke is a little undersized, the fact that Clemson has really good size is something that we need to pay attention to. They have 3 guys on their team who are all 6'10" across their front line. And I think it's very possible The guy they got two who start and one who comes off the bench. The guy who comes off the bench might be the best of them. He is 6'10", Nick Davidson. He played for 3 years at Nevada. Last year at Nevada, he averaged close to 16 points per game. This guy's a legit player. And he's struggled early on at Clemson. Yeah, he wasn't quite fitting in. He was trouble figuring out his role and stuff like that. This is sort of through December. As ACC play has come on, he's played more and more. And lately, like over their past 5 games, he's been in the mid-teens in scoring virtually every time. He's hitting his 3-pointers. Nick, even though he's 6'10", and ostensibly like a center, dude will step out and hit threes. He's hitting them at the 37% rate on the season. He's had a couple big games. Like they played BC. He had 4 3-pointers against BC. Nick Davidson, again, coming off the bench, but playing more and more lately, is a definite threat for them on offense. The starting big, who I think is most significant, is a guy named Carter Welling, who played at Utah Valley. By the way, one of the crazy things about Clemson and the guys that they picked up through the portal, a bunch of guys from Utah and Nevada. It's like, really?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that's not counting, of the guys, the transfer, you haven't talked about him yet, but RJ Godfrey, who left Clemson to go to Georgia and then come back to Clemson.
I'm going to get to him. But I was just saying, when I was looking at this, I was sort of like, sometimes you hear about transfers like where they stay in the same region. I'm like, no, Brad Brownell went out to the West Coast, went out to Utah and Nevada to get his
national
transfers.
brand, national program.
There you go, man. So like I said, Carter Welling was at Utah Valley. He's their second leading scorer at about 10.5 points per game. He's their leading rebounder. He's their leading shot blocker. Now, just because he's not a big shot blocking threat. This is just not a good shot blocking team, this Clemson team. Carter Welling is a guy who he'll put a lot of pump fakes on you in the post. He's great at drawing fouls. Despite his size at 6'10", Welling is very willing to put the ball on the floor. And he has a little more explosion and athleticism than you might think from looking at him. So be on the lookout. I've seen some highlights where he's yammed on some people in some pretty big ways. The other big man who's a starter, he's also 6'10", Jake Wallen. He was at Utah. So like Utah Valley, Utah. So anyway, but Jake Wallen is, he starts, but he's almost a non-entity on offense. He's only about 5.5 points per game or so. He's a good defender. He's a guy who knows how to, cause problems for you defensively, but he's not a big offensive threat. You mentioned the leading scorer for them is RJ Godfrey, who I guess technically, like you said, he was at Clemson for 2 years, went to Georgia, came back to Clemson now. Technically, I guess he's a wing, but he really plays more like a post kind of player. He's 6'8", 230 pounds, and dude is like he'll play physical, for sure. He is leading the Tigers, like I said, in scoring at 11.6 points per game. He wants to operate in the lane. He's not going to go outside. He's taken 7 3-pointers this year. And like, if you look back over his career, he's just not a guy. He does not shoot very often. I think most of his 3-pointers are like either, the shot clock's about to expire or something like you could leave him alone a little bit, but he's not going to go out there anyway. Like, he's going to stay in the lane. I think what Clemson does is they bring their other bigs outside a bit to create some space for RJ Godfrey on the inside. Let's get to the backcourt really quickly. The backcourt, I guess, is led by Dylan Hunter. I mentioned him at the top. He is the one returnee, the only guy from last year's team who played minutes. He is, of course, Chase Hunter's younger brother. Guy who does a little bit of everything. He's averaging 8 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, hitting 38% of his threes. He's a good 3-point shooter, even though he doesn't shoot a ton of 3-pointers. And it's worth noting, he's hitting like better than 50% on his threes on the road. This is a guy who plays, believe it or not, better on the road than he does at home. And he has a history of really hitting 3-pointers when he's in another team's stadium. So be on the lookout for Dylan Hunter. The point guard, I guess you'd say he's the point guard, is Justin Porter. He came over from Middle Tennessee. He's got a little more than 10 points per game, but just 1.4 assists per game. Really, they're putting the ball in Dylan Hunter's hand more than they are Justin Porter's hand. Porter's the guy who could have some matchup problems, though, on defense against Duke because he's a little bit smaller. And then the last guy I wanted to mention, pay attention to 6'3" wing Ace Buckner. This is the son of former Clemson great Greg Buckner. I mean, if you're Donald's age and my age, you remember Greg Buckner. Was a really, really nice player for Clemson, like started every game for 4 years for Clemson. His son Ace is there now. He's a freshman, even though he's really a sophomore. He redshirted last year as a freshman. And his playing time's been going up lately. Like Ace is suddenly turning into a guy like he was playing, he's playing like 14, 15 minutes. Suddenly he's playing like 20, 25 minutes. So I think you're going to see a little bit more of Ace in this game against Duke. And with playing time comes scoring. He has been in double figures in 5 of their last 6 games, Ace Buckner. It's also worth noting he could not hit 3-pointers at all early in the year. And suddenly he's hitting them a lot better. In fact, over his past 5 games, he's 8 for his last 14 on 3-pointers, which is a very, very nice percentage. So Dylan Hunter hits threes pretty good on the road. Ace Buckner is suddenly hitting threes a lot better. They got guys coming off the bench. It's just a really interesting team to look at, because if you tell me you know who to shut down, I'm going to tell you you're lying. There's no idea. I don't know who you focus on. Like I said, they played a game earlier where the bench had double the scoring of the starters. This is a Clemson team that is just super deep, and that's their profile. And if you think one guy is the key, no one is the key for Clemson.
It's funny, the points distribution between the best guy, the guy who scores the most of the team and like the end of rotation is like a difference of like 5 points. It's like 11.6 to Butter Johnson. I just wanted to say his name, Butter Johnson, at 5.3. So you have this again as everything is very evenly spaced out. They don't look for one particular guy over the other. And as we go to things to watch, Jason, there's one thing that you mentioned about offensive rebounding, how they're not great at offensive rebounding because they just like to get the shot off and maybe go back on defense, but they crash 5 on defense on the boards. A lot of the times when you have teams like that aren't super big, especially their guards, rebounding position is everything. And one thing is, despite the fact, and this is even more important if Big Pat can't play, you need to have guys that have the positioning on them, because then you don't want to waste fouls on loose ball fouls and over the backs and things like that. You want to have the positioning so when we do take a shot, they have to run around you or they have to foul you to get the rebound, because part of their whole ethos is they want you to take a bad shot, as you mentioned. They want to get the rebound, and then they want to just go down and set up the offense. They're very slow on both ends of the court, so rebounding position is going to be key. And if we have the guys in those positions, we're going to get a lot more of those offensive rebounds that than they would expect us to, and that can generate some second chance points, third chance points, all those things, those intangibles that we like to see in Duke's favor on the score sheet. Ball movement. As I mentioned, this team is the worst in the ACC. Clemson is at ball movement. We are one of the best teams in the ACC, despite the fact that until the Pitt game, we hadn't, been doing that a lot lately because of our kind of newer focus of being inside the post. But I think, again, just like the second half of that Pitt game where we were able to move the ball around a lot, get some good shots. We shot 50% from 3 in that half against the Panthers. Bringing that to this game, I think, is going to be key, because the way to beat sometimes some of these defenses that just stand in front of you is to move the ball around and to have guys moving through rotations. They're going to move with you, but that means there's going to be an opportunity for there to be a mismatch, or for you to have the positioning on somebody to then go to the basket. And I think with some of these plays, you might see some set plays where guys are forced to move around into different positions and make Clemson have to kind of move with them. And that's where defenses can break down if they're, same thing when we talk about Virginia later on with the pack line defense. Getting them to move around, that pack line defense wilts. That's how Clemson kind of operates. It's not the same style of defense, but it is one where you keep them in front of you. They want to keep you in front of them. And if you're moving around, that's a little bit harder to do. When we're on defense, I think suffocating defense is the key. Stopping those guards. And again, making it where, if they want the Herculean effort of all these guys trying to beat us, then let's have them figure out how to do that and stop, not make it where one guy goes off and make it, that sort of thing. So our defense has been pretty good, especially amongst the guards. I think that's the key to stopping Clemson on offense. And the final thing, Jason, you mentioned the fact that this team is very, very slow. One of the slowest teams in the country, particularly on defense. If we have a tempo,
slow in terms of pace, not
in terms of pace. Yes,
I'm not insulting them.
Yes, in terms of pace. They hold the ball for a very long time. They want you to hold the ball when they're on defense. One thing that John Shire has wanted to do, he's mentioned it time and time again, is he wants this team to move, run their offense a little bit quicker. If they have opportunities to get on transition, to go ahead and do it. Clemson, this is going to be a fascinating matchup because I think this is a game where John Shire is going to want them to go a little bit faster. To, hey, go down the floor, because if you have a defense like Clemson's, you don't want it to be set. And if you're able to get out in front of them, it's hard for them to get set. And if you're in transition and you're able to work through the holes in that defense before Clemson can get their 5 guys back behind the basketball, you have a lot of opportunities to score points. So I'm going to see if Duke early on wants to try and push the tempo a little bit. Not too much, but push the tempo a little bit so that Clemson is left to scramble. And when they scramble on defense, that's when it's easier to get good shots off. The ball movement part can come into play, and it makes them have to play catch up. And as we know, when you try to spend extra energy to try and catch up in a game, particularly in a game where you don't like to, move the tempo, if the tempo is a little bit faster and in Duke's favor, I think that's a huge advantage.
Duke, I think for the most part, has played slow because the defense has forced teams to play slow against us. And I on offense, it's not like Duke is playing at breakneck speed, but we are one of the top 100 in the country at in terms of offensive execution. And I think John would like to see that even higher than it is. And this will be a really interesting test of which team can impose their will to some extent on the game, with two teams that really rely primarily on defense as their identity more than anything else. It's a fascinating matchup. I'm very eager to be watching it. Hey, can I do one more thing before we go?
Yeah, you were going to talk about something in the ACC. Go ahead.
Yes, the thing I was going to talk about in the ACC is the news that has come down in just the past hour or so that Caleb Wilson of North Carolina suffered a fractured wrist when he was playing against Miami. He came back in the game. He tried to keep going, and he ended up playing, significant minutes in that game. But afterwards, they looked at it again, and it does appear that Caleb Wilson has some kind of break in his hand and his wrist. There's no word from Carolina how long he will be out. This is obviously a very, very significant thing that's happening to the Tar Heels. I think Caleb Wilson is arguably, almost certainly, the second best player in the ACC, behind Cameron Boozer. And Duke fans got a full dose of the Caleb Wilson experience when we played Carolina just the other day. I want to come on here and say that no matter how much we don't like UNC and talk down on them and all that other kind of stuff, I hope that this guy's back on the floor as soon as possible. I like him. I like his game. I like how hard he plays. I like how much fun it is to watch him play, except when he's playing against us. And I never root for anybody to be injured or hurt. So I'm not super optimistic that it's going to happen very, very, very soon, because fractures tend to take a little while longer. I mean, look, I'm not a doctor. I don't have his x-rays in front of me, but I feel like, if you hear a guy like a strain or a sprain, I'm usually like, oh, that might be a week or so. Fracture, I sometimes go, that could be multiple weeks. And Carolina's got they play Pittsburgh this weekend, but after that, they've got some really tough games coming up. So I hope Caleb Wilson comes back, because Tar Heels at full strength is how it should be. And I look forward to returning the favor to them of the defeat that they handed us. And when we do return the favor, when they come to visit Cameron, I'd like them to have zero excuses. So I'm hoping Caleb Wilson is back.
The interesting thing about Caleb Wilson's injury, it came in the loss on the road to Miami the other night. And he was hurt in the first half. He went to the locker room and received x-rays in the locker room. They then came back and said, oh, he's fine. Like, there's no break. So they threw him back in the game. He was largely ineffective. I think he scored only 12 points in the game, but it was he was trying very hard to go through it and work through it, and he obviously couldn't. And it was then after the game, they went out and they said, hey, he doesn't have a break. He should be fine. It's probably just some sort of bruising, but we'll get it imaged when we get back to Chapel Hill. It was when they got back to Chapel Hill, they did another x-ray, and that x-ray revealed the fracture. And as you mentioned, they haven't said how long he's going to be out. I'm not betting against him missing a long period of time. I mean, it'll probably be some significant time for UNC, but as you mentioned, I think by the time we see them on March 7th, I'm not expecting him to be sitting on the sidelines and close. I expect him to be in uniform and in that game. So we'll see what happens on that side of things. I know a lot of you like to keep tabs of UNC. I personally don't. I like to wait until we get closer to the game because we have so much basketball to focus on, and that's what we will do in the meantime, but hopefully he can get well soon. Jason, that will do it for this episode of DBR Bites. We will be back probably on Sunday or so after the first game before the second game. Remember, this is a Saturday, Monday double. If you're in Durham, find Jason, find the dog, say hi to both of them, and give him a drink on me if you see him. So especially if you're at the Wad Duke, because I can't pay for those right now, but it'll be fun in the meantime. He's Jason, I'm Donald. It's time for the Duke Band to play us out and take us to Saturday.
Where's your playlist taking you? Down the highway? To the mountains? Or just into daydream mode while you're stuck in traffic? With over 4,000 hotels worldwide, Best Western is there to help you make the most of your getaway, wherever that is. Because the only thing better than a great playlist is a great trip. Life's the trip. Make the most of it at Best Western. Book direct and save at bestwestern.com.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Tap the banner to learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.